In this course, I'm going to show you how to take something like a Rivoli or a Cabochon and use basic beading techniques to create a little wrapping to go around it. We call it a bezel. So in this sample you can see I've added a beaded edge that encloses my original Cabochon. Now doing that allows me to add additional beadwork, so I can create fancy designs like this pendant. And as you can see, the original Cabochon was quite unusual in itself. Or this Chico Cabochon, I used a beaded casing to create a basis on which I could make a mandala. You don't have to do fancy things with the Cabochons. You could even just take a Rivoli like this, bead around it, and it gives you a surface that you can use to join on other elements, as I did in this flamingo necklace. So this skill is really incredibly useful. It will open up a whole variety of beading projects that you can try. Okay, I'm going to show you how to work in modified right angle weave. I've got some nice big size 6 beads, so hopefully you'll be able to see clearly what I'm doing. And I'm using two colours so you can see the difference between the basic right angle weave and the modified bead that creates your peyote edge. So we start by picking up 4 beads. These will be just like you would pick up for normal right angle weave. So we're going to slide them along the thread. Just leave a tail thread you can stitch in later. And we're going to pass through all 4 beads again. So pull that up firm so that they form a circle. I'm going to go through another 3 beads and then pause and show you how to align yourself here. So if we take a little look at what I've just called a circle, think of it more like a square. So you've got a top, a bottom and 2 sides. We're coming out of the bead that sits at the top. What we're going to do is pick up one of the different coloured beads, that's our modified bead, and 3 of our right angle weave beads. Then we're going to go upwards through the bead that sits on the right hand side of your top bead. So if I pull all that up into place, you can see we've got a new little right angle weave unit, but we've got this modified bead sat sort of in the middle. So I'm going to carry on through the first of my blue beads, so that's the top of my new right angle weave unit. Pull everything up really tight, and what's happened is this modified bead, as I'm calling it, has snuggled its way in between the top beads from the 2 units, so it's ready to sit in a sort of peyote alignment. So that's the idea behind it. Let me just show you again. So we've got 1 orange bead, 3 blue beads. We're coming out of the top blue bead from the existing unit. We're going to go up through the right hand bead on that same unit, and then on through the first bead, blue bead, that we've just added. So that orange bead snuggles in again between the 2 units. So let's do it one more time. So we've got 1 orange, 3 blue. We're coming out of the top blue, we're going to go up through the right hand side and then continue on through that first blue bead, so we're just ignoring that orange bead. And again, 1 orange, 3 blue, up through the bead in the side, ignore that first orange bead, pass on through your second bead. So 1 orange, 3 blue, up through the bead in the side, ignore the orange bead, on through the first blue bead. And that's it. That is modified right angle weave, and we can just keep on continuing like that until we've got a strip that's as long as we need it to be. Now if you're going to use your modified right angle weave strip to make a bezel for a Rivoli or a Cabochon, you're going to need to turn it from a strip into a tube. So the first step in that is to make sure you've got the right size. So I've got a little strip that I've been beading here, and I've got a little Rivoli. Lay the Rivoli flat, and I carefully want to edge the strip around the edge of the Rivoli. It's a bit tricky because the Rivoli is going to move, but you can see I've just got a little gap left that's probably about the size of 1 unit. So that tells me that that's the perfect length to now join up the ends of my strip. So let me just move that little sample out the way. I'll go back to my big beads and show you how we join the two ends of the strip. So I've got my thread exiting from that top bead in my last unit. I'm just going to fold the strip in half, and I find it easiest to sort of clamp it between my fingers, so I've got a finger between my final unit and my first unit. I'm going to pick up the 1 orange bead and 1 blue bead just as we would to start a new unit, but we've got our second blue bead in place already, so that's the end bead on the first unit, and I'm just going to pass downwards through that. I'm not going to pull everything up tight yet because I want to see where I'm going next, and that's just picking up 1 blue bead, and I can pass up through that side bead on my final unit. So that's the same manoeuvre we would have done normally when we picked up our 1 orange and 3 blue. So from here I carry on as usual through my new top blue bead, and I've actually got the strip joined. But if you just look at it, we're currently missing that orange bead. So I just want to add that in. Simply pick that up, pass through the next blue bead, and I'm actually going to go on through the following orange bead because I've been mentioning that this is creating a peyote style edge. So that's like doing the step up in the peyote stitch. So now we've got a little tube with our orange beads forming a peyote edge around the top, and that would be ready to sit around the edge of our Rivoli or Cabochon. Here I've got another sample, and I've actually got my little modified right angle weave peyote stitch tube sat around my Cabochon. Now if we take a little look, this is quite movable at the moment, and we're going to fix the back later, but currently I'm a little concerned that the front edge doesn't come very far over the Cabochon, so there's a danger that the whole thing could just pop out when I'm using it. But happily, because we've got that peyote stitch edge set up, it's really simple to just bring that front edge in so it's a little more securely placed over the Cabochon. So let's take a look at how that would work. Just move that sample out the way and come back to my tube, and if you remember we left it so that I'm exiting from one of my orange peyote stitch beads. Now I've got some new black beads here. These are actually a smaller size, so size 8, and I can use those to just stitch a peyote row. So this technically is tubular peyote. Don't need to worry too much about the terms. All we're doing is picking up 1 black bead, passing through the next orange bead, and we want to pull everything up tight, so you can just do that by simply pulling hard on the thread, but I also like to try and clamp my thread in between 2 fingers. That stops it from just loosening as I'm getting my next bead ready. Now I don't know if you can notice already, but because we're using smaller beads, this is actually starting to pull our little tube inwards. So we're managing to create a slightly smaller circle that would extend further over the edge of our Cabochon, which is exactly what we wanted. But we don't have to do any fancy decreasing or anything like that. Simply using these smaller bead size will create that natural inward pull that we're after. So I'm just approaching the end of the row, and that means I have a step up. So I've got my final single black bead, I'm going through my last bead from the previous row, the orange bead, and then I'm going to step up through the first black bead that I added. Now I might consider that that's enough to seal my cabochon exactly as I want it to, or I might want to do an extra row with the black beads or a different colour bead. It's really, the pattern will tell you what to do, or the choice is yours, but that should start sealing the front of the cabochon. So next up we'll look at what we do with the back of it. Okay, so now you've seen how to seal the front of the cabochon, let's take a look at what we do about the back. Now the first step is to just get yourself through to that back side. So I'm currently exiting from the second row of peyote. What I'm going to do is just weave back down through my beads until I get to one of my top right angle weave beads. So that's one of my blue beads. From here, if I just turn everything around, I can follow around the side and the right angle weave and then into the bottom. And here I am exiting from the underside of my little tube, and that's the side that we would actually pull in to seal around the back. So let me just move this sample out of the way a minute and we'll take a look at each of the two samples we've been viewing before. So first, this little Rivoli. You can see I've sealed the front in and that's looking lovely. Now if I just take the casing off, have a look at the side of the Rivoli. It's got a really narrow edge. So when we put the casing back on and turn it over, you can see my bottom right angle weave beads are actually sticking up over the edge of my Rivoli. So that is absolutely perfect. It means it's going to be super easy to seal in the back. All I need to do is add in 1 or 2 peyote rows. So I'm going to try and just do this with 1 peyote row. So for that reason I've used my smaller beads again. So it's exactly the same as we were sealing in the front. You're just picking up 1 bead and you're passing through. In this case it's the next right angle weave bead because we don't have that peyote row on the bottom of the modified right angle weave strip. But as you can see, you need to anchor the little Rivoli in place in the casing as you work. And it's a bit tricky. I mean, this is a nice small Rivoli, so it's pretty easy to hold. But you might find with slightly larger Rivolis, they're wobbling about all over the place. And it's not until you get about halfway around your circle, your bezel, whatever you choose to call it, that it's actually going to be firm enough for you to let go. So top tip that I've discovered the hard way, if you're getting to the point where you're about to seal the back of a Rivoli, make sure you've actually got beading time to do it. You don't want to put this down and pick it up in the middle of it. You want to try and do the whole thing in one go. So if you think you're going to need to run away to answer the phone or do a little chore or something, do that first, then come back and start this sealing in the back process. Right, this is getting a nice way round, and I'm making sure I pull the beads up tight each time. And as you can hopefully see, if I risk moving my thumb away, that's pulling that casing in now. So we're nearly at the end of the row. And when I get to the end of the row, I'm then going to assess. Oops, that is a bead that isn't going to fit my needle, so let's just discard that. Try another bead. And there we are. Last bead in this row. So again, I'm doing my little step up manoeuvre. And now if I pull this up tight, what I want to know is that secure enough to hold my casing? I think the Rivoli is going to stay in place, so I could risk finishing off the thread or adding the next step there. But if I feel like it's maybe a bit insecure, I'd add another peyote row around that.